guys, it's Cressida, and today we're going to be doing my spring TBR. I have gotten rid of monthly TBRs because I found them too confiding. I have a lot of books that I want to read, but I can never get to all of those books in 1 month. So instead of monthly, I've been doing seasonal TBRs, and winter was my first seasonal TBR, and it worked out for me. Like, I actually got to most of the books that I wanted to read in winter, so I feel like I'm going to continue these seasonal TBRs until like I stop following them. So that is what we're going to do again for spring. Obviously, that's the video you're watching. So how it's going to work is I'm going to talk about my 2 reading challenges, which is my series challenge, where I try to continue on or finish series that I have started in the past. There are way too many series that I'm currently still in the middle of, so I have a ton of those. And then my read it or on haul challenge, where I pick 1 book per shelf to read before the end of the season. The reason for that, it just kind of pushes me to read more of my own books. But before we get to that, I do have a few rollovers from my winter TBR. I actually followed my winter TBR a lot better than I was expecting to, but more thoughts on that in my February wrap-up that I'll be posting soon after this video. But from the winter TBR, there are 4 books in particular that I'm currently still reading that I think at least 2 of them is probably going to roll over into my spring TBR, but they're all books that I have started at least. And those books are Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang, The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett, and The Golden Key by Melanie, Rawn, Jennifer Roberson, and Kate Elliot. So of these, I think the only one that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to finish is going to be The Golden Key, just because it is so huge and I'm only like 6% into it. So this one is definitely going to be a rollover, and since it is one of my read it or on haul books, I kind of knew it was going to happen. I kind of stated it in my winter TBR that I would likely still have at least part of the book to read by the end of February, but it's a little bit more than just part. So because of that, I am gonna reduce my read it or on haul a little bit. Instead of doing 8 books where I choose 1 book from each shelf, which is 7, and then an extra fantasy, I'm gonna skip the extra fantasy so that I can get to this one, just to be more realistic when it comes to my read it or on haul book. As for these other 3, I definitely plan to finish at least 2 of these before the end of the month, but the 3rd one will be rolling over into spring. I'm not sure which of these yet will be that book, but I'm fairly certain I can finish 2 of these before the end of February. So it's time to do my series challenge, in which I pick 2 series out of this cup over here. There's a ton of series that I have started but not finished in this cup, so I get to pick 2 of them out of this cup for each season. We're gonna start with the first one. Picking one from the bottom. I don't know what color it is. Oh, it's blue. I don't remember what blue is. I have 2. I don't know. Which one should I drop? Oh, well, let's drop 1. Okay? So there's another blue one. I don't know what it is. Blue is YA. Or actually, this is middle grade, and this is How to Train Your Dragon by Cressida Cowell. That is a fun series. I have a lot in the series left to go. I'm on like book 6 or something like that, but that is a very fun series, so I'm excited to continue on with this one. Like I said, I have a lot left in the series, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish it, but I'm excited to get to it. I think this is perfect because middle grade March is coming up, and this would be perfect for middle grade March, so I'm loving this. Now I gotta pick another one. Orange. I don't know what orange is. I was hoping for green. Fantasy is green, but I'm getting different colors. I guess How to Train Your Dragon is not that big of a deal. But this is the orange one. And this is Take Them to the Stars. I don't even remember that one. I'm gonna have to look it up. Okay, I remember this now. So Take Them to the Stars by Sylvain Neuval, from The History of What Comes Next. And the next book in the series is Until the Last of Me or something like that. I don't remember exactly the book. I'll put the picture of it on the screen. But I had decided to DNF this series since doing this series challenge. So I'm actually just gonna DNF this series. I'm not gonna continue on with it. The reason being is because this is a sci-fi author, and I like his sci-fi books, and I enjoyed A History of What Comes Next, but this series has a much bigger like historical fiction feel to it than a sci-fi feel to it. So because of that, I did not love it as much as I wanted to. So that's why I decided to DNF the series. So I'm just gonna pick another one instead. Okay, there's 2, but the green one stayed and the orange one dropped, so we're gonna do fantasy. That looks upside down. The Riyria Revelation by Michael J. Sullivan. Hey, that's not bad at Cowell. So this is actually a series that I own the full trilogy of. Well, technically it's 6 books, but it got republished as a trilogy. I have read first book, Theft of Swords, so I'll need to read The Rise of Empire and The Heir of Rawn. I probably will either reread Theft of Swords or like just read like a spoiler review or something just to like get back into it. But I remember enjoying Theft of Swords quite a bit, so yeah, I think this is definitely doable. I can definitely get to this in spring. Next, in regards to my series challenge, in addition to the series that I picked, I do have the year-long series that I have challenged myself with finishing in this year, and we've had some changes since my last TBR. So in my last TBR, the year-long series I had were Malazan Book of the Fallen and the Stormlight Archive, but I have since decided to pause on the Stormlight Archive until next year just because I wasn't enjoying it as much as I wanted to, and instead I've added Discworld, which was the series that I had planned to finish next year. I've decided to move that timeline up to this year instead, just because those books have been working much better for me this year than in the past. Because the Stormlight Archive is such big books, the equivalent to one Stormlight Archive book would be 9 to 10 Discworld books. So that is my plan for spring, is to read about 9 or 10 Discworld books, which sounds like a lot, but because they're so short and like they're just fun and fast to go through, I don't think it's gonna be that big of an issue for me. The ones that I think I could probably get to in spring are Pyramids, Small Gods, which is the one I'm the most excited for. Then we have Eric, Interesting Times, from like the Rincewind arc, and then from the Death arc I want to get to Reaper and Soul Music. I want to get to Witches Abroad, and then hopefully I can also get to Men at Arms and Feet of Clay from the Night Watch arc, I think is what it's called. Those are kind of the ones that I'm planning to get to, but I'm not like holding myself accountable to like the specific books. The goal for spring is just 9 or 10 of the Discworld books, because if I do 9 or 10 spring, then 9 or 10 in autumn, by the end of the year I should be able to finish the series no problem. So that's my goal with that. In addition to that, in my last TBR, I did end up picking the Dandelion Dynasty as my series challenge, and I did not end up finishing it. And in my last vlog I mentioned why, and it's because I'm enjoying the series so much I don't want to rush it. So I've actually given myself like a smaller but still like big goal of finishing the Dandelion Dynasty before the end of the year, so I'm letting myself have a whole year to read the last 2 books. So in spring I do think I should be reading The Veiled Throne by Ken Liu, which is the 3rd book in the Dandelion Dynasty, which I'm super excited for because there was a lot of things at the end of The Wall of Storms that made me really excited for this book, but at the same time I just like I needed a break from this series, but I will definitely be getting back to it and I'm really excited for it. And then of course we have Malazan Book of the Fallen, which is my biggest disappointment from my winter TBR because it's the only goal that I didn't make any significant progress on, because I was supposed to read both Gardens of the Moon and Dead House Gate in winter, and I started Gardens of the Moon. I'm not super far into it though, literally right there. So I do have to read Gardens of the Moon and Dead House Gates in spring. I will definitely be getting to them. And on top of that, my plan is to also read Memories of Ice, which is the 3rd book in the series. This is the first book that I haven't yet read. Like, these are rereads, and I think that's part of the reason why I had trouble getting into these, is because they're rereads. But I think if I have that goal of getting to Memories of Ice, which I will in spring, I'll be more likely to get to these because I already know what happens in these books and they're great and I enjoy them so much. But I do need all of those details before going into Memories of Ice because it's been years since I've read these. But at the same time, I'm just not as excited for it knowing that they're rereads. But I think with Memories of Ice coming up, I'll be way more into this. So I'm really excited for this. Hopefully I will not put this off as much as I did in winter. Winter was also a lot busier for me than I was expecting it to be. So I'm just hoping spring is a little bit of a lighter load for me, which if it is, I'm not gonna make this my goal. Like, I'll be happy if I finish those 3. But if it is light enough, it will be like a personal goal of mine to also get to House of Chains. But like I said, I don't know how well it's gonna go, and it did not go well in winter. So I'm not getting too excited for this quite yet. But like, Malazan is a series that I absolutely love already, even only 2 books in. So I definitely want to be getting to them sooner rather than later. Alrighty, so it is time to pick my Reader on Haul books. So we're gonna start in the corner here with my Book of the Month / Classics shelf. And I really haven't decided where I'm gonna go with this season, I guess, because I feel like last season I went for the classics, but it turned out to be a harder season than I was expecting. So I kind of want to go with the Book of the Month, but I feel like most of these I have already read that are at least on this shelf. There's like for example, Razorblade Tears is probably an example of one that I haven't read that I've heard good things about, but not typically a book that I would ever pick up. So I feel like this could potentially be a good option. So I think this would be my corner shelf book. Now I do have to do a book from my like small shelf here or from this shelf down here. So more book of the month or these, mostly there's a little bit of thriller up there, but I've read everything on that top shelf. And then like contemporary historical fiction. I feel like there's not a lot of selection on this particular shelf. So let's go back down to this one. And I feel like there's a lot on this shelf that I could potentially like to read. I think I'm gonna go right here with The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I've heard a lot of good things about this particular book, so I feel like this is a good option as well. And now we have to come back to the sci-fi shelf, which I really don't know where I'm going with the sci-fi shelf at all. Last time I went more classic and I kind of regretted it. So I think I want to do one of these newer series or potentially A Memory Called Empire. Actually, ooh, there's also Station 11. I think I want to do Station 11. I didn't really think this was the direction that I was going to go for this, but I've heard a lot about Station 11 recently, particularly the writing style that makes me think I could potentially really love this. So I think it's finally time I get to this one. Now it's time for my fantasy picks, which there's a lot of options. So I started at the top last time and it went well for me. So I think I'm going to do the same this time. And the one that just screams at me is The Rune of Kings by Jenn Lyons. I just feel like this is a series that I've always wanted to start. So I feel like this is just the way to go right now. So I'm gonna pick this one. And coming up on the shelf, the first thing that catches my eye here is Vita Nostra, because the next book in the series, the third book, is coming out in July or June, is being translated, and I haven't yet read the second book, Assassins of Reality. So I feel like this is where we have to go with Assassins of Reality as my second fantasy pick. Then we're going to the YA shelf. This one I'm having a little bit more trouble with. I've read most of the books at the top here. I mean, I haven't read the Throne of Glass series, so that's always an option. And then going down here, Sunbringer. I mean, I could cop out and go with Sunbringer, but like I know I'm gonna read that. That's already on my TBR. It's already on my list. So I feel like I shouldn't pick that one. And then the further we go down, the less I feel like I'll like these books. So I'm thinking it's finally time. Well, I can't do any of these, but I can start with Heir of Fire. I don't like it. I don't like the choice, but I feel like it's a classic for a reason and I need to finally get to it. So this is going to be my reader on haul for YA, and it will be one of those that if I really don't like this one, because this is the one that everyone says like makes the series a lot better, like this will be truly like I'm not only gonna unhaul this book, if I don't end up liking it, I'll probably unhaul all of these as well. So hopefully I'll end up loving this, but I don't have a lot of faith in that. But I shouldn't have this series on my shelf if I don't end up loving it. And last but not least is my middle grade shelf, and this one I do have quite a bit of middle grade. This is mostly YA at the top, but the rest of it is middle grade. So I kind of want to go down to the bottom here because I went to YA last time and I feel like that didn't work for me. So we have the False Prince series at the top that could work. Most of the rest of that I've already read. And what catches my eye on this shelf down here are the Garth Nix novels in the corner, or the Fire and Wings. I feel like that's a good option. And I've been in a dragon mood recently. I kind of want to go with that. Whichever one is the first book. It's still in the wrapping. Like that's how much I have not read this yet. It's still in the wrapping. So whichever one is the first book in this, that is going to be my choice for Read It or Unhaul. Alrighty, so I feel like I should explain some of those Read It or Unhaul picks. First of all, Read It or Unhaul, for me at least, the goal of it is not to unhaul books. Like the goal of it is to read the books that are on my shelves and decide if they're right for me. I don't really necessarily want to DNF these books because I spent money on them, so I do want to read them, but sometimes I just need a little push to actually get to them. So the idea of this challenge is to just push me to read books that I'll end up loving, hopefully, but they're also books that I'm probably not gonna pick up unless I'm pushed towards them. So for the middle grade pick is The Dragonet Prophecy by T.T. Sutherland. So the idea of this series makes me really happy because it is like a middle grade, like dragon, I believe dragon rider fantasy. There's like different dragons. I don't actually know that much about it. I've just seen it everywhere and the dragons make me excited for it because I've been in a very dragon mood recently. I'm not sure why, but I just have been. I just feel like this is a good fit. So I'm excited to get to this, but like it's a series that I've heard like mixed things about. I think part of it is a lot of people are reading it, and this is a middle grade series. A lot of people who are not in middle school are reading it. I personally really love middle grade books, like more so than YA actually, which is surprising, but I just think the themes in middle grade book fit like the themes that I like a little bit more than like the themes in YA book. But anyway, I'm excited to see if I'll end up loving this one as well. Also, it's middle grade March, so of course I'm gonna pick at least one middle grade series for my Read It Around haul, and I have the first 5 books in the series, so if I end up loving the first one, I can definitely binge read this, at least the first 5. And they're short, like they're not super long, so it wouldn't take me too long to finish them. And then I picked Heir of Fire somewhat reluctantly. Now the reason I ended up picking this is because one, I don't have that many actual YA books on my shelves that I haven't read. Most of the YA books on my shelves I have actually read, and I've kept them because I've liked them, but there are a few that I haven't read, and the Throne of Glass series is one of them. I've read the first 2 books in the series. Obviously, I wouldn't start with the 3rd book, but I did not love the first 2 books, but I've heard the 3rd book is where it gets better, and like people actually get into the series, which that's happened to me with her other book sometimes as well. Like A Court of Thorns and Roses, I did not like the first book in that series, but I did like A Court of Mist and Fury and the rest of the series. So I'm hoping that's kind of the situation here with Heir of Fire and the Throne of Glass series also, but it's also a series that I could definitely see myself not finishing and end up unhauling. Like this is definitely a series that I've stayed away from because I'm worried I'm not going to end up liking it. So this is definitely going to be very either hit or miss for me, and we'll see how it goes. But this could potentially be a fun vlog, I feel like. Then we have Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. So this is another one that I've had very mixed reviews on. More recently, the reviews have been more positive, but I feel like in the past, people who love like fantasy and sci-fi have not liked this as much, but people who like literary fiction do like this. I tend to like both to different degrees, but I am definitely more of a fantasy sci-fi reader, so that's why it's taken me so long to pick this up. But this is like an award-winning book. Like some people like think this is like one of the best books of all time, so like I feel like I need to understand why, which is why I decided to pick up Station 11. For like seeing this on the shelf, I was actually leaning more toward A Memory Called Empire, but that'll have to be for another time. For this season at least, Station 11 is going to be my sci-fi Read It Around haul. Then we have The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This is a surprise to me. Like I kind of did not expect myself to pick this book. I feel like this book has been on my mind a lot just because I have it on my shelf. I've heard a lot of other people seem to like it, but I also have read other books by Shannon Chakraborty and I did not like them. So like I have the book, so I feel like I need to read it because I bought the book. Like I bought it, so I need to read it, but I don't know if I'll end up liking it. It's also fantasy. Like that's what gets me. Sometimes with the book of the month fantasies, I end up not liking them, and then sometimes I end up really loving them, but not because of their fantasiness, but because of like other aspects of the book. So I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this, but I feel like since I've been eyeing it so much recently, I feel like it's just time to get to it. Then we have Razorblade Tears by S.A. Cosby, which this is a book I was never gonna pick up if I wasn't forced to do it. I've heard really good things about it. I believe it also either won or was a finalist in like the book of the year, which this is an action or like thriller novel, which is not like what I would expect to win that sort of award. Like I definitely expect something more like a contemporary or a romance to win that award. So like that would surprise me if this won, or like I think, oh, it says it's a finalist, so it didn't win, but it was still a finalist, which is like amazing. I've heard people talking about this, and like despite this not being like the normal genre of the people who like read this, they still ended up really liking it. So I feel like that could be the same for me as well, but it's also, again, like I said, not a book that I would ever pick up without the prompting, so I feel like it's just a good one for this challenge. Then we have Assassins of Reality by Marina and Sergei Dyachenko, and this one, it was kind of just me realizing that I should have put this on my TBR, and I had forgotten to put it on my TBR, so I just decided to pick it as the book, so I was kind of cheating with this one. It's super short, but this is the second book in, I don't know what the series is called, the Vita Nostra? It's a sequel to Vita Nostra, either way, and Vita Nostra is like a dark academia, like magic school novel, but like the weirdest version of it you can possibly imagine, but like in a good way, and this is the sequel to it, so I'm really excited for this, because Vita Nostra was one of my favorite books that I like picked up because of BookTube. Like I wouldn't have like even known about that book if it wasn't for BookTube, and then I picked it up and I absolutely loved it, so I'm excited to get to this one, and I was just annoyed at myself for remembering that I did not put this on my TBR anywhere else, so when I saw it, it just reminded me of it, so I feel like that's a good reason to pick it up also. It's on my shelf for a reason. It's because I want to get to it. By having it as a reminder, I'll actually get to it. And last but not least, we have The Ruin of Kings by Jenn Lyons. So this book I have actually picked up up in the past, and I have put down, not because I didn't like it, but because it's kind of dense and there's a lot going on and it's slow paced, but it is the exact kind of novel that I have always wanted to read, that I always look forward to reading, and I just never get around to it because it is just, I mean, this one in particular is not that big, but there are 5 novels in the series, and the entire series is out. So, like, the fact that the entire series is out just, like, feels intimidating to me. Whereas if there's a series with only 1 book out, it's just like, oh, I only have to read 1 book, and then I'm, like, at the furthest point I can be. But with this one, I could binge read all 5 novels. But, like, that's a lot to read in one go. I feel like I should at least start it, because this is a series that I have been wanting to get to forever. I don't know that much about it, other than it's, like, a politically driven fantasy novel, but, like, honestly, that's literally all I need to know about it. So I think it's time that I finally get to it. And next, we're gonna talk new releases, and there are quite a few coming up in spring that I'm excited for. Obviously, we did have 2 from earlier, which were A Drop of Corruption and The Devils, which I will be finishing because I do have arcs of those. But for the ones that I don't have arcs of, that I'll definitely be getting to, first one is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is obviously a Hunger Games prequel, which I enjoyed the previous Hunger Games prequel. Not as much as the original series, but I did really enjoy it. And Sunrise on the Reaping is following Haymitch's storyline, so that makes me really excited because Haymitch was a character that I actually did really love in the Hunger Games, so I'm really excited to see, like, his storyline. I feel like we also got a little bit of his story in the original series, so it'll just be fun to see how that actually plays out, so I'm really excited for this. Also, Suzanne Collins is one of my favorite authors of all time, and I just want to read more books by her. Next, Faithbreaker by Hannah Kanner is coming out in the Godkiller Chronicles. That being said, this is the 3rd book in the series, and I've only read the 1st book of the series, so I do want to get to Faithbreaker, but in order to get to it, I do also have to read Sunbringer, which after I made my Winter TBR, I was like, why did I not include Sunbringer into it? But it's fine. I will be getting to this probably in early March. This is probably gonna be one of the first books that I pick up because I do want to get to Faithbreaker as soon as possible as well. In the 1st book in the series, we're following, like, a group of characters who are going on this quest, and one of the characters is a god killer. One of them is, like, friend of the emperor, and then there's also a character who is, like, hunted by a god, and it's just so interesting. I really enjoyed the 1st book specifically because I got super invested in the characters and their stories. So because of that, I have been wanting to pick up Sunbringer, so I will definitely be picking up Sunbringer and hopefully getting to Faithbreaker as well. Obviously, if I don't end up liking Sunbringer as much as I'm hoping to, then I might just DNF the series, but I'm thinking I'm probably gonna really enjoy this, so I'm really excited for this. Then we have a couple of romantic contemporaries. The first one is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I feel like springtime is just, like, the perfect time to pick up some romantic contemporaries, and of course there are a few coming out. Emily Henry is one of those authors that whatever she writes, I just pick up. Probably the audiobook, maybe not, we'll see, depending on how I'm feeling. Like, if I'm on vacation or something, I'll probably bring, like, the physical book with me, but this is definitely one that I'm going to be picking up sooner rather than later. And then the other one is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez, another author that, this one is actually newer to me author that I read last year, and I ended up loving her Part of Your World series, and I believe this is the 4th one in her Part of Your World series, and I'm really excited to see how it continues. They're more like companion novels than, like, an actual series, but there are enough threads weaving between the novels that I really enjoy seeing how they connect, so I'm really excited for this one as well. Okay, so I do have a few other books that I want to add to my spring TBR, and these are, like, BookTube made me do them type of books, because they're books that I have seen on BookTube that I'm just like, I've never seen this before, but I've been seeing a lot everywhere since then, and people seem to love them, so I want to get to them also. The first one is The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. This is the 1st book in a series, and what has drawn me to this is people describe it as, like, fantasy horror mix, which I feel like just sounds really interesting. I think the second one might have more horror elements. I'm not sure. I honestly don't know, but, like, a dark fantasy novel is just the type of things that I would probably end up loving. I feel like not enough authors do, like, crossovers between, like, fantasy and horror, and I feel like it usually works really well when they do, so I'm really excited to finally get to this. Obviously, I checked this out from the library, so I probably should get to it sooner rather than later, or I need to get my own copy of it, but I am excited for this, and if I do end up liking this, I could potentially get to other books in the series as well. And the other one is The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simone Jimenez. I don't know very much about this at all either, but I've seen it on BookTube so much, and it's, like, a fantasy book that, like, was one of people's favorites from last year that I just had never seen, so I'm excited to get to this one as well. I've heard the writing is very kind of, like, lush and descriptive, and I do enjoy good description, so I'm excited for this, and hopefully I'll end up loving this. I've never read anything by this author before, but I do end up loving authors if they have like interesting writing styles. And because this one, I've heard the writing style is quite different, I am excited to see how that works in this book. Again, another one that it's the library book, so I'm hoping to get to this sooner rather than later, but I honestly don't know because I just have so much that I want to get to. So that is all I have for you. Let me know in the comments if you plan to read any of these books or if you have read any of these books. I would love to hear what you thought of them. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel. I post videos at least once per week, but I've been posting a ton of bonus videos, so please consider subscribing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.